Trying to do this for years and years and years.
And they have succeeded.
Oh, have they now?
Yeah, I think everybody has agreed
Agreed.
to the calendar that Mary Jane put out.
The basic.
But there may be different first days of school and different last days of school, because,
There
you know.
will be.
Yeah, but the main holidays contained within the school year should be in alignment.
Well, and even if the district is a little bit different, we can still keep with this if we want, right?
Or we could go with the district. I mean, I think,
We just don't wanna change things too much on our families, but in some cases, it's convenient if you have children in multiple districts to be able to rely on the holidays being the same.
so the question is, we ought to publish the county calendar for both years. The question is, should we publish, which I didn't include, but it basically is the same calendar as 2021, if we're 1920. So the question is whether we ought to put out a calendar before the district does. What are the chances that they're not gonna do what's on that piece of paper?
Why do we feel urgency about publishing this now? Like, why not just wait if we feel
If it's-
Well, I
concerned
know,
that we
I've
want
already
to
gone
align?
to I've already gone to the website to figure out when do we go back to school, because people are already planning summer, or think about when summer vacation is, so.
And staff wants to know.
And a lot of people have to put in their vacation requests at work, starting with the new year, and so they're trying to figure out when they should take time off.
And I think especially the August start is a big one. And then if Christmas is the winter break is if it's questionable,
It's
depending
not.
on when they fall.
Yeah.
then-
Now that the county has laid down
Yeah,
and these particular years, it's not, Christmas is close to the weekend,
Yeah,
so
where
it's
it
not.
falls.
so it's,
Yeah.
so it's either.
Well, they're in the middle, they're both Wednesday holidays for next year, for Christmas and New Year's, so people are,
So did they publish a different version, like for high school and
No,
Or
they
is everybody
published a
the same?
This is from the
countywide,
for
county.
everybody?
that just has,
Okay.
as Sharon said, what are the main breaks? Thanksgiving, spring, spring, when the spring break is a very arbitrary week.
Yeah, it seemed awfully early, actually, it's like the
Wha-
first.
whatever.
It's no
It's the same
longer
as this year.
adjoined
Easter.
Easter.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and usually, I mean, because if you look at the chunks of time between breaks, it leaves a really long stretch at the end of the year. Normally, I think they make it a
It's
little more
usually
balanced.
like, right, like the
Right,
second
so
week of April.
because of that, there have been different calendars all over the county, because people have picked a different rabbit out of a different hat.
Easter
Yeah.
rabbit.
But now, I think after many years of trying, Mary Jane
Yeah.
has got everybody to agree to these chunks of time being common. And so, it's really just, because of that, the district is not gonna change,
Yeah.
not gonna start a week early. I know what they're gonna do, even though they're not publishing it.
And we'll start on the 21st.
Yeah, they'll start whatever it is on that piece of paper, which is where I got it from. I mean, I had to give them a schedule for Prop 39, and so I just looked at the last couple of years, when did they pick? They start on a Wednesday, it's in the 20s.
So two comments, one is, whatever we do publish, can we just put effective and then a date, so then if there is a second,
It can be shown.
yeah, if
when
there's a
people are
second
looking at
version,
comparisons.
like, that somebody would know, oh, I need the next version. But the other aspect would be, are all the staff development days, cause I'm thinking of days when school, people need to know the days that kids aren't going to school. So the staff development days already decided?
No, that's the thing the district has not done, is picked its staff development days.
But there are
And
some
we'll
on
probably
the
don't
county
have to.
calendar.
And is that something where they also want us to align on staff development days?
Well, they do some county staff development sometimes.
Oh, okay.
So that's why they've chosen, it's usually like an October and a March date.
Yeah.
But then the January one is usually, I think districts can kind of choose. I mean, we haven't talked about it as a staff, but these are generally, we usually like to have one in March to prepare report cards, we like the one in January to get ready, and then the October one's kind of a good time. So I don't really see an issue with those dates.
It's
So
more
the-
difficult for high schools that have the semesters or trimesters or whatever, and they're trying to get their
Right.
breaks on, you know,
They, right, they need to even time.
yeah.
So there shouldn't be, barring a day or two, in staff development, any changes.
Well,
Mhm.
conference time, right?
I'll raise the thing that I've raised the last couple of years, which is just, this doesn't look like much professional development to me at all.
Yeah.
Like, I visit schools all the time that have 2 full weeks of professional development during the year, easily.
And that's something that I wanted to honor too, that was part of our conversation at the end of the school year on the idea of potentially having different number of student days in the year and having potentially more staff development days.
But weren't parents not too excited about the idea of having a shorter school year?
I think some didn't mind, it was late in the year to be having that conversation.
Well,
You could
and
run it a little long.
If
Yeah.
you have quality education and more is happening on the days you're there, taking out a few days is not gonna impact what kids are learning
It's like a couple days.
at all.
Well,
I
if
mean,
you're a
it's-
working parent, you've gotta, pay for daycare or camps or whatever, that's an issue for some people.
I don't see why we couldn't just add 2 days to the end of the school year then too. I mean, you don't have to cut instructional days, we could just make the school year a little longer.
For a little more money, not free.
Anyway, I think this is an important part of the scheduling, is figuring out like how much time do the staff need to get better? Cause it shouldn't just be about just maintaining whatever we have been doing, it should be that we have enough time built into the schedule to truly get better and continuously improve, right?
So like last year, we had an extra day at the end of the year, which some people thought, how could that be productive? But it was incredibly productive at setting us up for this school year.
Cause we had one day that was just sort of a clean things up, and then we had 2 full days of staff development, and
It
that
was
was
just
great.
planning for the next school year.
And it was helpful, cause I think
Oh,
I was one of
yeah.
those people who's like, really, at the end of the year, you're gonna wanna sit
But
and
you
talk
have,
about
everything is fresh in your mind
Yeah.
from what worked.
You're
and what didn't
reflecting
work.
on everything that's happened.
It's
and
actually
you're-
a really
And
good
you're not really
time.
thinking about, oh gosh, I gotta be ready to teach tomorrow or next
Right.
week, you've got the whole summer then that you can be tossing
Putting
around
all the
kids,
other
getting
pieces
together.
together.
It was
Yeah.
a great time to
Because,
do it.
yeah, teachers don't just sit and go to more over the summer,
Mhm.
they do a lot of
So
thinking.
maybe
about
we need to put something like that in again, I mean, especially if that was something that worked really well.
it. And then the other part of that is budget
Mhm.
of do we, if we're asking teachers to work extra days, are we paying them for those extra days? Or are we taking a day or two out of the student calendar and making those staff days?
We do have the flexibility, if we're gonna pay teachers for extra days for staff development, to look right before school, right after school, even in some of the longer breaks, whether it makes sense to do a day or two. And that doesn't affect families who are already anticipating that time off, so I think it would be fine for us to come back and figure out financially what we would wanna add in, and then look at all of those various options and see if there are places where it made sense to add in staff development without necessarily affecting the traditional calendar for families. So,
So I think this is good as a general, because people are asking, I've got three questions in the past month.
What?
That's not
Yeah.
overwhelming, but of people saying, when's the start date, when's winter break next year?
So if we could, maybe say that, this is, the start date and the winter break are set. There might be some slight changes
Yes.
Well,
with
just
the
to
end or
say,
something, if we
initial
needed.
draft dated, whatever,
Yes.
this week.
Or like, don't publish this whole calendar, just say, here's the
The-
first day, here's the
yeah.
winter break dates, and then say, we'll have the full calendar in a few
Yeah.
weeks.
or you could put next to the, staff development days, tentative, or something like
But-
that.
So
So
can
that-
you guys maybe discuss the staff development a little bit and come back with
Yeah.
some
I
thoughts?
mean, I think
I
it
just
would
wanna
be-
underline, agree with what Christie said, is there should be enough built in that we create environment of continuous improvement and innovation, as opposed to like, oh, we started this great thing, but it's like to keep feeding it by staff development.
And then I'd love to consider, the end of the year, I'm glad that was a great time, but I also wonder, like, wouldn't it be helpful in the middle of the year sometime to have an extra day? Like, when you're still in the middle of it, you know, and just have a little bit more time to do the work together, or talk about how to help students, or, you know,
There's
whatever.
some also like flex, I know other schools where they'll take like or maybe you guys do this also, but one or two teachers will go to a conference maybe
Mhm.
during the year on a specific, like math instruction or, a specific topic, and then come back and kind of teach the rest of the
And-
teachers,
And then
so-
I'll give you a sense of, we do some of that, and we also do, like, once a month, new school comes here, and I have 3 substitute teachers that day, and they cycle through the classrooms, and the teachers are, for a third of their day, working with new school on their, every month, working on their plans.
And that's been amazing.
Oh,
It's been
good.
really effective because it's totally like what we're working on, what we wanna do, you know, either
That's
this
perfect.
arc or the next arc, and the woman who comes is fabulous, she's totally a great resource, so that's been really, really helpful.
And it's
Yeah.
almost like real, I mean, once a month, but it's kind
Yeah.
of real-time
Mhm.
input into what you're doing.
And you're gonna
That's
continue
great.
that next year? Or-
That's a different conversation. I don't know, if we don't have necessarily the budget to
Mhm.
continue something like that,
Mhm.
but we can look at how we can do something like that
Mhm.
as having some in-service time during the school year
Mhm.
with some sub money. It's a lot cheaper,
Mhm.
Good,
and the kids are still getting school days.
cheaper than whole PD days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Mhm.
Well, so is this something that like at the upcoming staff meeting, there could just be like a question on the table,
Yeah.
Mhm.
how do the teachers and the staff collectively want to make sure we build in enough professional development to really be like, feel full and abundant with that?
Yeah,
Cause it sounds like there was more happening than just these professional development days,
Oh, yeah.
right? You know what I
And we
mean?
meet every Wednesday too,
Right.
and there's often things
Yeah.
that we talk about
Right.
during those Wednesday meetings that
Yeah,
also.
but even this, if they come out and they're doing that, I mean, that's huge.
Oh, yeah, it's been really excellent.
I mean, that's huge.
And I think it would be good if we decided to add in a few days here and there that we tie them into other breaks possibly. So like if we wanted to add another day in January, so people came back on
Drake
the
does that
8th
all the
instead
time.
of the 7th.
Right.
I think that's easier for families to tie it
Oh,
into.
yeah.
You know, and they're probably like, great. we
rather
can-
than another
Great.
Monday.
Yes,
No, but you know what,
exactly.
it's like, great, we don't have to come home in traffic, or we can
Yeah.
get a cheaper flight, cause we're coming back later, like,
than
Drake
everybody
always
else
does
in
an
the
extra
world. So
January.
If the teachers are gonna be here on the 6th anyway, then it makes sense to take the
Yeah.
7th or something like that, so. And if we had to push our last day out to a Friday instead of a Thursday, that's not that bad of a thing, so we can talk about that.
And,
Okay.
and we are over the required number of days.
Yeah, I would cut days
I
rather
would-
than
yeah, I would
add
too.
a day at the end of the year.
Yeah,
That's cost effective.
yeah, I agree.
It saves us a little money because we don't have the hourly people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we could cut a week, I'm not suggesting we do this.
5
We
days.
could cut a week of student days
And still be with.
and still be within.
We're at like what, 190 or something? Is the required 180?
No, I think we're at 180 and I think the requirement is 175 or a little bit less.
It's a little bit less for charter schools, but it's like 2 or 3 days.
There's probably some things that just pure classroom hours is good for,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So,
Definitely.
So I'm not pushing on
Yeah.
that amount, but
Right,
Yeah.
but
We have room.
rather than add days
Okay.
at the end of the year, we just ought to have. fewer
and then we're
days.
butting against, I mean, we do live in Marin, we're butting against people jetting off
Mhm.
for places and missing days at the end of school year.
So I would encourage us to just put tentative by the days that we're not absolutely positive
Yeah.
about and publish it that way, rather than to take things off, because then people start going, well, where's that day?
well,
that,
and
you
with,
know,
and with the
so-
note, that's just, you know,
Yeah.
additional staff
Well,
development
I
days
would
may
almost
be
say, just,
identified.
you know, we
Well,
could publish the starting date and the winter break.
and like Christie said, and then just put, these are the spring break days, this is the winter
Yeah.
break days,
Mhm.
and leave it at that.
And then work on
We'll
with the
publish
staff
a
on
more
what your more
detailed
detailed
calendar.
PD calendar is gonna be.
To get to
And I
in
mean-
the next month or so.
Just based on what I hear from you, I would say, you know, like, maybe January is a good time to start a day later, take a day out, and just end a day earlier, or 2 days early, whatever
Yeah.
is appropriate. You know,
That
whatever you
makes
think
sense.
it makes the most sense. And then maybe next time we can vote on it and publish the whole thing, and we're done. Yeah?
I like the idea of ending school early, because those last few days are not there's a
More
lot of
productive.
learning going on.
But you
And
always push those days back.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But we
Right.
also
Still
were trying
happen.
to.
Then there are two due days that
Mental-
are.
But we're trying to
Adjust.
squeeze in, end of the year student-led conferences, so we don't wanna like, we have to make sure we allow enough time for that as well.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, that's an alternative
Mhm.
to adding a payday for a teacher.
Oh, right,
Right.
for
Yes.
sure.
Yes, I think we need to do that instead of that.
Well, I know, you just can,
I mean-
you can maybe mix and match,
Yeah.
do a little bit of each.
Okay, so do we actually need this to be brought back to a board level, or could we like approve it tentatively now and let them?
So all we would be doing would be taking the staff development days off of this
Well,
calendar.
here's what I would suggest, I would suggest that Luke and the staff go back and tinker with this. I mean, I just brought it here because there was some conversation about the need to begin to get some clarity for parents, and then Mary Jane simultaneously put this thing out. So, I think that there's no need to do anything right now. The district will likely act in the next month or so, and then we'll know what their schedule is, and then you guys work on the kind of things that we talked about
And we'll bring
today,
it to the board.
and bring something back.
But do we at least wanna decide that, okay, school starts this day in August? 'Cause I think that's the most urgent for parents, being able to make their summer plans.
But I think we can put all the I can't see not putting all the holiday breaks out there too.
Yeah,
because
agreeing,
Okay.
agreeing to the holiday
Just
breaks
take
and
the
the
staff
start date.
development days off and say to be
The only one
determined.
is potentially that would
In
add another
January.
day in January.
That would make the break longer.
If parents are making, holiday plans.
And Drake already does that.
Adds an extra day, yeah, they
Mhm.
always go back later
Yeah.
than we do.
Alright,
So are we voting on that? Okay.
So, well, I think what we do, maybe what we can do is vote on that, contingent upon the staff having their conversation, and then if that makes sense, to go ahead and send the calendar out to families. So, I think we can do that without.
Well, and then but then if staff wants to add a few
How-
days.
How can you understand how we vote on something?
Yeah, I don't,
It's
I mean, I don't-
not fixed.
Absent, cause we're still questioning that.
I know, but I think he can just go do that.
yeah.
yeah,
I'm not sure you need a board action to.
okay.
Right,
No, I am glad you brought it though, I think it is good time to be getting the key dates that are fixed
Yeah.
or likely fixed, get them out to the parents and it,
I don't think we wanna wait till our March meeting to send
No.
out a
No,
calendar,
no.
so I
No, I
think,
agree with that.
I think what the motion is to authorize Luke and the staff to have a final conversation about the calendar, and once they've had that and agree on that it's okay to send out the calendar from the board's perspective. That sound okay?
You guys trust us and what if we come up with something wacky?
Well, I think we have an
Well, you
assumption
have a
that you're not
limited pot of
expanding the
money.
number of,
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
expanding cost,
Yeah.
yeah.
And not
At
cutting
At least-
student
at least
days by more than a
cost
couple.
neutral.
Right.
Yeah.
Or even three, I mean, if you needed two at the end and one in January or something.
We're looking at basically cutting a few student days in order to get
Potentially
more
cutting some,
PD.
yeah.
That's the question on the table.
Yeah.
So you guys will either decide to keep it as it is or add a little bit more.
And we don't wanna put that out to the community council? the
And we'll talk
education?
about the next community council meeting.
Okay.
Well, I think it's just that, I don't know that we could afford to add
Mhm.
the cost for three more professional development days. And so if we wanted to put that in, I think our preference is to reduce the school year by up to 3 days maybe.
And at last summer's meeting with the parents about this, we weren't, there was no opposition to it, it was just,
And I think it's,
Way
and I
more
think the
minutes.
professional development, I think is really critical, so I think, I mean, I agree with Christie, I think that's a priority for, that,
Mhm.
I think the teachers have to be able to have that,
Yeah.
and so, I would
Great.
put my preference on having that time.
I agree.
Okay.
And from a financial point of view, if there's a need for more PD time, it's like close to $4,000 a day, so if you added a couple of days, it's not gonna break the bank, but just mix and match the
Right.
cutting back the days
Yeah.
Right.
and adding the days.
Right.
or like these, the
The
creative.
PD itself typically costs more money,
Right.
But I'm not saying we have to go with full day PDs, if you guys prefer this approach that's the half days with 3 subs and that's cheaper, then great, like,
Mhm.
do the model that,
I think a combination of
better.
both, because
Yeah.
having full days all together is really important too. Like when we were kicking off inquiry-based learning, you know, we really needed to all be together, be hearing it together.
Yeah,
And we need to continually have that time at the end of the year to be planning for the upcoming year.
yeah.
Is to get everybody in the same place, in their head in the same place, with the same focus for the next year. And then they can all go, while they're sitting on the beach, be thinking about.
Yeah.
Well, and
Okay.
the reality is last year after we all met together, each different grade level met together at least a couple of times during the summer anyway. So we were doing that on our own time, but we were like thinking about percolating these ideas so
Yeah.
that we were ready for when school started,
Yeah.
so.
Is there any public comment on this item?
Just a question, you've got the 10 buffer days for the students coming to school. If there's like a smoke day or the power is out or something, does that go against?
No, we can get
Really?
exemptions
No,
for
yeah,
those.
we get
Okay.
exemptions.
That's why I filed the exemption for the smoke day,
Okay,
just because if we decided this year to cut back, I wanted to make sure we
Yeah.
had the
Covered.
maximum.
However, if there's an extreme length of time where you miss too many student days, oftentimes you have to
Yeah.
make
make
it
it
up.
up.
But it's not usually 1 or
If
2
we
days
start getting
here and
snow
there.
days.
Yeah,
Yeah,
big blizzard.
There's something, so, but that would be explainable to parents why you would wanna extend your
Right.
school year then, so. All right, so, I move approval to delegate to Luke and the teacher team, a little bit of problem solving and creativeness with the calendar so that, they can possibly work on a little more professional development day without added cost and lead up to potentially, 3 less student days. Maybe not that many, but hopefully. And so that's my motion.
Second.
With the holidays scheduled to coincide, okay? So, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and we'll send out the draft county 2021, just say that that's a draft from the county, and we don't have beginning and end dates for that year, but at least they can look at when the potential holidays would be. Okay, on to our next item, which is our emergency and safety plan. It's basically our current plan for renewal.
Which is aligned with the district, with the White Hills plan.
So were there changes? I glanced through it, but I couldn't,
No,
no
just
changes,
the
okay.
days.
Just,
There was a little bit of cleanup that happened.
yeah, like the page numbers are off.
Mhm.
Any other questions or comments on that item?
How
Any
about,
public- oh, sorry.
just wondering how the teaching staff feel about the procedures, is this all good?
Well, we're really
People are
so tied into what White Hill's doing, and it's actually incredibly frustrating, because they put out a list of dates, and then they change the dates, and then they say it's gonna be a fire drill, and it turns into an earthquake drill, and that part is really annoying, honestly. But the actual procedures are fine, it's pretty standard at any public school, I think,
Yeah,
yeah,
process is a little frustrating.
yeah, yeah.
Any public comment on this item? Okay, do I hear a motion for approval of our emergency management and safety plan?
I move to approve the emergency management and safety plan.
Okay, second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, next item on the agenda is our lottery capacity. And our first application period is set for March 10th, to end on March 10th, with the lottery scheduled for March 14th. And this agenda item basically authorizes Luke to work and take a look at the capacity of each of our classrooms and to make some determinations about how to place students from that first of several, I'm sure, lotteries for
Yeah.
students.
So it's basically how we're loading classes.
Right, and we're gonna be meeting the day before this anyway.
Yeah,
So this basically is to say that Luke's gonna bring us a recommendation on March 13th?
Well, basically.
Yeah, the lottery will happen on the 10th, I mean, the letter will happen on the 14th, right,
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Got it. when I first wrote
Our
this,
meeting was later.
our meeting was later.
But it makes sense.
So basically what we'll do is we'll create lists for each of the grades of students, and then we're gonna have to figure out how many of those students in each grade that we can admit to the school based upon where we think we have the spaces.
And there's also the consideration of if we have kids who would slot into a first and second grade class better than a K1 or 1, 2, or second, third, do we load classes that way? If we have an outlier class in the grade space?
Like last year we had a 3-4.
So it's looking at all the pieces and trying to figure out what makes the most sense before telling the family that their student is in, because we wanna make sure
Yeah.
that we're gonna have space for them before we do that.
And the reality is, which we found in the past, is that in March, you don't really know what it's gonna look like in August. And so we make our best guess, and then things always change, and we get more applications, or people drop who said they were coming, or whatever, so.
A family of 4 moves to
Yeah.
Spain,
Right.
which happened, but yeah.
So do we need to approve anything today, or can we just approve it next time? Because we gotta approve it next time anyway.
You're giving me the authority to,
Look at the classroom configurations and make decisions based upon what makes the most sense. Out of this first lottery, again, there's gonna be multiple
Yeah.
lotteries and where things will happen.
So then, but it says that its March meeting can approve the recommendations. So don't we need to
Right,
not do
so
anything now, because since the meeting has been moved, we can just do it at the
So-
next meeting
Yeah,
anyway?
is this for
Or just
you
so
to
be the
decide
next day.
before the lottery, how many names? you're gonna
beforehand it
hold?
was, but
But our meeting
Yeah.
moved,
our
Yeah.
meeting moved,
so
so
now it's kind of
Right,
irrelevant.
so we don't need to authorize him to make a decision.
you just have to,
Because
We're gonna do it next time.
You'll
We're
just
gonna do it
make a
next time.
recommendation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
It
you'll
was
make a
directing you to
recommendation to us.
Plan something.
yes,
and present it in the future.
Okay,
that's gonna be happening anyway.
okay. All right, so we'll be bringing that back to our next meeting then. Okay. So we're basically just taking action at this time to hold our first, to end our first application period on March 10th and hold the lottery on the 14th. basically. Is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none, do I have a motion for approval of our lottery and
Wait, we're not, I thought we're
our
not doing it now.
application period? We're just setting those dates.
you already set them,
Yeah,
you don't need to set them.
Okay,
The-
all right.
but
Okay.
The policy does not
action
require
needed.
the board to set the date.
okay, all right, no action. Come back at our next meeting.
And so you have an understanding of why the March 10th date and 14th date was set, that's partially in line with private schools and when they make their offers to kids. And so we want to be there as
Yeah.
people apply here, sometimes apply to private schools.
Right.
Know if they've made it in. Okay, next item on the agenda is our consent agenda items, which is basically our meeting minutes. We don't have any personnel updates,
Nope.
so is there any comments on the meeting minutes? Or do I hear a motion for approval of our meeting minutes?
Move to approve the meeting minutes from last meeting.
Okay,
Second.
second. Is there any public comment on this item, by the way? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any
I'm
opposed?
abstaining,
Okay.
that was.
Okay. Okay.
Is
Future,
that because you weren't present?
I wasn't.
future meeting needs and topics. We know we're gonna be bringing back our, discussing the EL student support systems. We're gonna be talking.
Could I,
LCAP needs to be on the next one.
Okay, okay,
And also,
I'm interested not just in the ELs, but
School
low income
sorry.
students.
Okay.
And any students who are struggling.
Yeah.
That was kind of my proposal, to what is our range of supports for students who are struggling? And how are we adjusting that over time? And then at some meeting, it could be the same, or it could be a different meeting. I'd like to also dive into what are our range of supports for kids who are advanced, who are ready to do more? And how are we helping them get everything they need to go farther and be challenged? I see them as two different topics,
Yeah.
honestly. So
I see them as two different topics, but if our board meeting isn't full of other things, it'd be good to have them juxtaposed.
Sure.
Yeah,
so LCAP will also be on there.
Are we in the lottery?
are we doing the
Budget?
NWA interim portion, the map, NWA map?
We did that at the beginning of the interim assessments. And then aligning the assessments that we have.
What are the interim assessments, the CASB?
CASP interim assessments.
Yeah, they're really just like the kids will take in May. And so it's really a good practice for them, and then it gives us good feedback instantly, and they're quick. They're less than an hour. The one at the beginning of the year was like
it was really
6
frustrating.
hours, and then the results we got were so not helpful to us. Really,
It was really
really
frustrating.
frustrating. So, and we were paying money for it.
And,
the interims.
and, yeah, so I've been haggling with them to get money back.
There was lots of technical difficulties. It was really not good.
Yeah.
Super
Sorry, that's too
frustrating.
bad.
Yeah, well, we tried. I'm glad we didn't try to stick it out and do mid-year ones, cause that
Yeah.
was really not worth it.
So, I wanna-
So what does it look, what do the interim assessments look like?
It'd be like a 15.
I mean, what are the results of, what, you know, the purpose of doing all this was to have be able to look out into May and kind of make some predictive value so that you could intervene in
Right.
time to change the outcome.
So we get back, I mean, I did my first one 2 weeks ago, and it was, specifically on reading nonfiction texts, and I gave it to both the fourth and fifth graders, and then I got back results the next day. There's a couple of short answer questions that kids will write at something, and then I have to hand score that, so I go in and do that. The next day I get results back, and it'll say how many were, scored in the advanced range. And then they don't break it into 4 categories, they break it into 3, advanced, not met, and then kinda around met. So in the real thing, yeah, it doesn't really specifically say, but in the real tests, you get either, what is it,
Met.
nearly met or met. This one, it's like close, you're in the close range. So what I did with it is I had a whole slew that were advanced, and I'm like, okay, mostly those kids are in good shape. I'm gonna look and see if there's certain questions that a lot of kids struggled with and got wrong. And then I look at my lowest, I had, one who was not met, and I had that child go work with Torby, and one-on-one, and go through the questions. And then my ones that are sort of in that fuzzy range, I'm working with them, and I'm literally taking the questions and going, well, this week we're working on our play, but next week I'm gonna look at it and go, okay, these are the questions, and how would you answer, why did you do that, and talk it through. So I think it's super valuable.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so they've come a long way in their interim assessment.
Yes.
Oh, they're really good, yeah.
And
And
then,
they're-
Because a couple of years ago,
Yeah.
they didn't really have it down.
No, this is pretty new. I'm really glad we're doing them. And, really, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to try to do them in November because we haven't done enough of a particular topic. Like, for example, with math, there's one that's like computation in base 10 or something like that. It's this big category. And it includes all the, subtraction and adding, subtraction, multiplying, and dividing. Well, we're just now getting to the point in 4th grade where we're doing long division, and it's February. So if I tried to give that in, last year I did that, I gave it in December, and all these kids did not do very well. Well, it's because I haven't taught this stuff yet. And so it's you kind of have to wait. You can't do it too
Right.
early.
So then my next comment is,